Hello, I'm Paul Andrews from G4 Guitar School Ashford, and welcome to tonight's webinar. So today we'll be looking at how to play rhythm guitar like Jimi Hendrix. So firstly, if you're watching this on Google, if you look at the top, you'll see a row, I think it's sort of 9 boxes, 3 by 3. Click on that, you open up a chat window, and you can ask me questions throughout the presentation. So if you get any questions, do let me know. So first thing we'll talk about is just basics of Jimi Hendrix sound. So firstly, any kind of guitar will do, but he's obviously a Strat player, so you want that kind of single coil sound. In regards to pickups, I'm using the neck, well, actually position 4, the neck and the middle. So basically both of those. Either will do, so if you either use the neck, so position 5 or position 4, you'll get that nice kind of Hendrixy tone. So there's only a slight difference, you know, in both. There's the neck. And here's a little bit brighter. Quite the dull sound of the position 4, the neck and the middle. So that's quite a nice one to go with. In regards to tuning, Hendrix would normally tune flat. So instead of E, he would have E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and so forth. So that's quite good if you really want to get his sound. I'm going to keep the standard tuning just to make things basically easier. So you can hear what I'm doing a little bit easier and a little bit kind of straightforward. So we'll basically dive straight in. So Jimi Hendrix, and when we talk about Jimi Hendrix rhythm style, we're really talking about any of those kind of school of players, which could be Pearl Jam, which could be John Frusciante from the Chili Peppers, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Mayer, all those kind of guys use this same kind of rhythm style, which is as simple as taking a chord and then laying a scale over the top of that chord and using those scale notes just to embellish the chord. So it's kind of simple as that, really. And to start with, for the very kind of beginner player, someone's only been playing maybe 6 months to a year and wants to try and start integrating this kind of style, we're going to start with an open C chord and just start looking at how we can bring this style in. So grab an open C chord. We want to basically use the relative scale for the chord. So if we're using a C major chord, we want to use a C major pentatonic scale. So hopefully you all know our C major chord. We've got first finger on B1, second finger on the D2, and third finger on the A3. And then the C major pentatonic scale is just third fret on the A, open D, second fret on the D, open G, second fret on the G, and B1. And you know you've got a major pentatonic scale if you can make it sound like My Girl. That's the ultimate kind of giveaway. If it sounds like My Girl, you've got a major pentatonic scale. It's a great reference point in that song, that little riff. So we've got our C major chord, we've got our C major pentatonic scale. The idea being here, all we can do is play the chord and then pick some notes out of that scale. I do put an extra note in there. Which doesn't really matter. If you know your C major scale and you do find you put in the extra couple of notes missing, that's fine. It'll just kind of decorate it a little bit more. It's a few extra colours really. Just to justify me playing it wrong. So we've got the C major chord, C pentatonic over the top, major pentatonic. And that's an easy way of just trying to get his sound of playing a chord and then put in these scale tones. And you can do that with any of your chords. So for instance, if you've got G major, we could use a G major pentatonic, which is third fret on the E, open A, second fret, open D, second fret, open G. I'm trying to keep it nice and simple, just literally picking the notes out, nothing more complex than that. It works in minor chords, so if we have an open A minor, we could have the A minor pentatonic scale. So we have open A, third fret, open D, second fret, open G, second fret. And also to mix them all together. So you can hear it's very, not easy, but it's very doable for even a beginner guitarist to get this Hendrix sort of feel. So get your open chords, put the appropriate scale at the top. So if it's a major chord, you want the major pentatonic. If it's a minor chord, you want the minor pentatonic. And then it's just playing around really, so bashing the chord and then filling the gaps with some single notes. Okay, so once you've got that basic idea, the next thing is to add a little bit more interest to it. And how we do that is with some lead guitar techniques. So hammer-ons and pull-offs are really kind of the Hendrix techniques of choice. So a hammer-on, if you're not too sure, is where you pick a note and you hammer your fretting hand on top of another note to sound it. So rather than picking those notes individually, we're picking the first one and hammering on top to sound the second. Very smooth connection between those notes. We haven't got the two individual picks, we've just got that hammer down. Next technique is a pull-off, where we pick the note and then pull off to the side. Again, we're picking the note once, we're not picking it twice. We're picking once and then pulling our finger off our fretting hand finger, sorry, to sound the note. So it's kind of like you're picking the string, but with your fretting finger. And then when you start putting those together, a hammer on and then a pull off, you get a really nice, smooth sound. And very Hendrixy. So you can see it sounds great, just with those extra couple of little techniques on there, hammers and pull-offs. The next one we can put on there is slides. So taking our sort of C scale again and just sliding the note, and maybe G string second fret up to the fourth. Sounds quite nice. And it's basically integrating all these techniques which will make it sound great. So the hammer-ons and pull-offs, the slides, and you just basically keep going like that. And so finding all your open chords, finding the relative scale, so E minor being the E minor pentatonic, E major being the E major pentatonic, and then just having a bit of a play around, really, adding the techniques just to add that little bit more interest, the hammer-ons, the pull-offs, the slides, and there we go. We have a taste of Hendrix with very simple chords, very simple kind of components. That Hendrix does play like that. There's some songs where he will play open chords and embellish around them. What we really want to look at though is kind of the bar chords, a more kind of intermediate kind of level. But to get to that stage, we can still use kind of those transitional chords, like an F, for instance. If we get an F chord, hopefully you know that. If we don't, it's the first finger laying across the B and the E string at fret 1, second on the G string fret 2, and the third finger on the D string at fret 3. We're then going to slide that up to 3rd fret with the first finger, so we end up with G. So we've gone from F, F sharp, G. And again, this is a very hard shape. It's more kind of advanced beginner, kind of early intermediate level, these half bar chords. And what we want to try and do here is that same idea of embellishing it, but all we're going to use is the little finger. And we're just going to try and play those notes, the 5th fret basically on the E, on the B, and on the G. And all I'm doing there is hammering on my little finger, taking off and re-picking. We could hammer and pull off. The only downside to this, you do need quite a strong little finger to be able to obviously have the oomph to get the note sounding. The problem with hammers and pull-offs is very dependent on how strong that finger is to execute that technique to get a level of volume. One thing you could do though, you could substitute that little finger for 3rd finger. If you want a bit of a stronger finger there, oh, not there. If you want a stronger finger, little finger's a nice one because you can maintain the shape. You don't lose it. So that's a very easy way to start embellishing a chord, is take the F and then just using that little finger. And now we have a movable shape. The F can then slide around. So it was G in fret 3, it was F back at fret 1, then at fret 5 we have A, B at fret 7. So you get some nice sounds there. And again, a very simple idea, just one chord, but embellishing it with this little finger. So there's a bit more the scale we're going to use over this. So the scale we're using is now major pentatonic, because we are using the major chord. So again, it's picking the right scale. And in regards to shape, this is pattern 2. Well, pattern 1 we'll call it major pentatonic. Some people refer to it as pattern 2, so then it's the same shape as your minor pentatonic. We'll know this as pattern 2, minor pentatonic. We're going to call it shape 1, major pentatonic. And we'll start from the 6th string. We're going to do basically the full shape. And it is 3rd fret on the E, then 5th fret. So again in the key of G, 3, 5. On the A string, 2, 5. D string, 2, 5. G string, 2, 4. B string, 3, 5. And then the top E. You could end on 3, but we'll put in the 5 as well. So that was 3, 5. 2, 5, 2, 5, 2, 4, 3, 5, and 3, 5. Again, all those notes now we could use with that shape. I was already using some already, just those little embellishments. We can use some of those techniques we looked at earlier as well. Hammer-on slides work really well. Again, I'm really targeting the kind of the top part of that chord, the top 3 strings. Again, keep it quite simple. So let's make this a bit more interesting. So let's venture into bar chords. We looked at the half bar chord, we looked at a way of kind of embellishing around just a normal F shape. We looked at the scale, which you could then use the F shape. But to get that more fuller Hendrixy sound, we want to really get to that full bar chord sound. And how he plays bar chords is he has thumb over the top. So his thumb hooks over the top to hold down that low E. Fret 3 in the key of G, and then his basically just have the F shape with the other 3 fingers. So first string is supposed to be in the E, second on the G, and third finger on that D string, fret 5. So the reason you want that thumb over the top is you get the bar chord sound because you're getting that low bass note, but you're not using your first finger to do that, so it's not kind of restricting you. By putting that thumb over the top, it gives your fingers off of that bar, basically. It frees up your fingers to embellish around. So then you can really get a nice Hendrixy sound. So use that thumb over the top. Again, some of those little embellishments we talked about a minute ago. We can do some what we call double stops, where you're strumming 2 notes and hammering on. Sounds really cool. So 2 notes at once there, be 3rd fret on the B and the E, and hammering on that B string, fret 5. So that's a really nice little Hendrixy riff. Let's take a double stop idea again. Now we're going to move it. So I'm just playing on those top 2 strings. We're going to play on the G string and the B string. So we're slightly moving our shape here. So we're going to do 2nd fret on the G and 3rd fret on the B. So there's our double stop there. And we're going to hammer our 3rd finger onto the G4. So we have... That's a great little kind of Hendrixy riff. Great use of kind of double stops. We can even slide those shapes. So if we've got the 5th fret on the E and the B, or B and the E, we're going to slide up 2 frets up to fret 5. And then the shape we had on the 2nd fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, we could slide up 2 frets. So we just slide up 2 frets to the 3rd fret up to the 5th for both of those notes. And on this one, we're sliding the G string up to fret 4 and the B string up to fret 5. So the little lick could be. Again, very Hendrixy, sounds a waltz sound. So we have the double stops where you're humming 2 notes at once. We've got the hammer-ons now. And the sliding of those double stops. And that works really well. Again, we're in this major chord, so these all fit nicely around this major shape. Next we can look at is moving out that shape a little bit more. So again, here's our G chord here. We're looking at pattern 1 major pentatonic. If we move this side, we're now going to be in pattern 2 major pentatonic. And this is great because these first 3 strings here, so the low 3, the E and the A and the D, actually are the same frets. So we're going fret 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. So quite easy to remember because they're obviously the same frets. So it makes it really nice to go in there. Again, we're hammer-ons, so just playing 5, hammer on to 7. Any of those 3 will work as nice hammer-on notes we can pull off. And then moving from that shape, so we have that G chord, And then just with the third finger, you can just slide it along. It works really well going from the A string, sliding up to fret 7. And very Hendrixy that bit. So what I did there was the G chord, strumming, sliding up on the 5th fret to the 7th, hammering on the D string 5 to 7, back to the D string fret 5, and then you can just finish there on the A string. Again, this is all stuff to really go away and have a play around with. I'm just really going to show you the shapes today and a few riffs, and then we're going to end with a few Hendrix songs and show you actually how he does it as well. And there we go, so we have now the E shape, kind of bar chord. In the key of G, we've got our double stops, sliding double stops. We have our Hammonds and pull-offs on those same notes. It's a lot to talk about now. And then the major pentatonic scale. So really, it's all come from that major pentatonic. So it's really focused on that, visualizing that shape on top of your chord, and then just using those extra notes to embellish that chord. And then we come out of that first position major pentatonic into second. Again, same ideas, all these basic Hammonds and pull-offs and double stops work in all these shapes. It's just finding notes that will and obviously notes that won't. For instance, if we progress down that pattern to major pentatonic, we have the 5-7, 5-7, 5-7. We'd normally go 4, 7. 5 does work though, 5-7, and that makes it easier for double stops rather than having to pull that finger back. The only problem is the next string using 5 and 7 doesn't really work so well. We get the major 7th when really the root is going to sound better. So we want to play the 5 and the 8 there. And on the top E, we're back to 5 and 7. So basically, it's 5 and 7 all the way apart from the B string, where you're going to want to push out to get an 8 in there. So you hear it sounds really good, double stopping all the way down that scale. It's just that B string we've got basically watch out for. So that's a really useful pattern and pattern 2. So again, got you. Loads of fun, just in those couple of shapes, and loads you can do with that. So yeah, so it's a really nice box to play around with, and that's a great way of just embellishing your bar chord with the root on the E string. The idea now is we're going to start looking at the root on the A string, and some nice little tricks that Hendrix does here. So I'm just going to drop it down, still the same fret, still 3rd fret, drop it down the A string, and then we have our C chord. So if you're not too sure your C bar chord, we are barring 5th string down with the 1st finger, and then 3rd finger is going to be on the D, G, and B at the fret 5. So 1st finger is barring 5th string down, so 5 strings on the 3rd fret, and 3rd finger on the 5th fret, D, G, and B strings. Again, very rarely will you play a straight bar chord, but a great little maneuver he does here is slides along the D string. So, moving up that 3rd finger, rolling up to fret 5 on the D, sliding up to fret 7 on the D. Then if you lay your 1st finger flat across the D, G, and B at fret 5, we've basically got where our 3rd finger was in the chord shape, but we're now using the 1st finger in that chord shape, if that makes sense. So you can see there's our bar chord. As we slide up with the 3rd finger, our 1st finger just takes the place of where our 3rd finger was. And this gives you a nice little inversion. Basically, first inversion, we've got the 3rd in the bass. So we're sliding up, we're putting the E in the bass. And all those little Hammonds and pull-offs, so those double stops work there as well. In all those kind of mid strings, on the G, the D, even on the A. And now the shape we're in is pattern 5 major pentatonic. So just to quickly run that shape, we've got on the E string, fret 8. Then we've got 5-7 on the A, 5-7 on the D, 5-7 on the G, 5-8 on the B, and 5-8 on the top E. So again, we want to know the whole of that scale, just so you can move around it quite freely. You may find you stick to kind of the centre of it because they've got this great little double stops. As I say, as you move up, you have to bring it out to then sound great. didn't sound too bad. It does kind of work. Again, if it's fleeting, if you're staying on it too long, it sounds a bit harsh. If you're quick, it'll work. So that's a nice little manoeuvre for the 5th string root bar chord. Just sliding up that 3rd finger along the A. Then you've got the E note, so your 3rd of the chord shape. 1st finger then lies down, and you have those great little hammer bluffs there as well. And yes, that is your pound 5 major pentatonic. So already we have these 2 most common bar chord shapes, the E string root and the A string root. And we have a few shapes we can then use to mix them up a little bit. The only thing we haven't talked about yet is minor. And with minor, we're just going to use the relative scale, which would be minor pentatonic. So if we're using G minor, for instance, back to the E string root, 6th string root, we've got E minor pentatonic shape at the top, which is actually shape 5 minor pentatonic, just with a different starting note. We start with the 1st finger, whereas on the major pentatonic, we start with a little finger. That's the naming note. So here, for instance, we're going to go 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 6, sorry, on the E string, then 3, 5 on A, 3, 5 on D, 3, 5 on G, 3, 6 on the B, and 3, 6 on the top E. And there's our G minor pentatonic scale. So if we've got our G minor chord, we can embellish that with our minor pentatonic scale. And that sounds lovely, very nice. Really useful shape, it just sounds great. But the real fun comes when we start mixing these together. So if we take maybe like a Hendrix inspired kind of pattern, maybe like a G, A minor, maybe C, and then G, and then 5 at the top, just to free up those fingers. There's A minor, C, G. A minor, C, and G. So you can see you can make that chord pattern very, very interesting, rather than just your basic bar chords, just by embellishing around using the appropriate, say, scale. Makes it sound a lot more funky. So there's how to put your kind of Hendrix style on just those simple bar chords. One more chord which might be good to look at is your D shape, is your movable kind of D chord. So again, we're talking about movable chords here, so we can move them around to any key, and all these kind of common shapes. And D is a great one. So we might move up a little bit, maybe to F. So I moved it now, looking at fingers 1 and 2. Moving my normal D up from fret 2, all the way now to fret 5. The bar, G string down, so I can free up these couple of fingers. So my 2nd finger goes on the B, as it has now gone from the top E onto the B string, and my 3rd finger goes on the D string. And the great thing about this chord is there's some great little double stops you can do here. And by including that little finger as well, we then have our C shape chord basically. So it's still an F, but it's the C shape. So it's our movable C. So that works really well. And the hammer-ons I'm doing there, I'm going from 5th fret, so again, laying that finger flat, hammering on the 3rd finger to fret 7 on the G, and then you do the same on the D as well, so fret 7 on the D, so both those strings work really well. And I'm saying that little finger can come in, just complete that shape. So there's our pentatonic scale, fret 8 on the E string, 5, 7 on the D, 5, 7 on the G, and then 6 on the B. So again, you want to find your scale on how it fits over the chord, because that will give you the notes you can then play around with and embellish that chord shape with. And there we go. So again, another really useful shape. So again, that's one we could easily mix in there. So the G, even to the F. We have to change key a little bit more now from what I was doing before. you can see that's how it works. Just taking your normal kind of chords, your bar chord, even your D chord. Again, you can do that open, and just embellishing around these kind of scale tones and making it a little bit more interesting. Okay, so one more thing we'll look at is with these chords is actually how you can extend just your rhythm playing in regards to the chords you're using. We've talked about taking the scale, putting it on top of the chord, and embellishing it in a kind of more melodic approach. One thing that Hendrix quite often does is takes his chord, and then this little finger, if we put it on the toppy, so again, I'm in the key of G, thumb over the top, Hendrix style, and then taking my little finger and putting it on that toppy fret 5, gives us a nice add 9 chord, or sus2. So again, you can hear that sounds a little more interesting to that normal G major sound. Add an extra little finger. Bring that little finger up once more onto the B string, and now have an add 6. So you get that kind of more jazzier kind of sound with add 6. Little finger up one more to the G string, and then we have an add 4, or sus4, sorry. Which is a great sort of chord, adds that kind of suspension, that kind of tension sort of sound. So we have 3 different chords now we can use, or 3 extra sounds really, to embellish that normal G chord. Little finger on the top E, gives us that add 9 or sus2. On the B string gives us that add 6, and then up one more gives us that, I keep trying to call it add 4, a sus4. So bear that in mind as you're playing, because again, we can then take our simple chord progression, maybe like a 1, 4, 5, like G, C, and D. And then use those extra notes. And you can hear it again, just makes those chords sound a little bit more interesting. Just 3 extra notes. And you can use that little finger and 3 different possibilities. Again, the add 9, sus2, add 6, and then the sus4. So again, just something I want to throw in there because that's really easy to do with that little finger, but it does add a little bit more interest. So that gives you a few ideas of how we can take our normal bar chords and how we can embellish them. We're using the minor pentatonic scales. Again, the relative ones, if it's a minor chord you're using, make sure it's a minor pentatonic scale. If it's a major chord, make sure it's a major pentatonic scale. You can mix that. You could use, for instance, a G major chord and put in a G minor pentatonic, but add that kind of tension, that bite, get a very kind of bluesy sound. But if you're going for the kind of Little Wing, kind of Hendrixy sound, Wind Cries Mary, make sure you are using the appropriate scale. Again, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, all that kind of stuff is great for embellishment. So let's move on, and the last thing we'll look at is just talking about some of the actual songs and show you how he uses these ideas in his actual tunes. It's great having an idea of how you can play around with them, but to take to the next level, you really want to see how he uses them. I think that really helps. So what we could start off with then is just this E shape. Again, that thumb over the top, and the embellishments. And there's no better song to really look at this style than Little Wing. So I definitely recommend getting Little Wing and having a real play around that. It's a great kind of education in Jimi Hendrix's style. And he starts with that great little... So just sliding back off that 12th fret. Again, a double stop, slides back, that kind of muted strum. But what we really want to look at here is this chord here where he slides in. And he hammers on that 9 on that top E string. And that's the one I want to show you, which is using that sus4, that 4th note. So he's in the 4th in that scale, pulling back to the 3rd, and then resonates that kind of root. So I'm sliding up my thumb 2 to 3, double stopping the B and the E string at fret 3, and then hammering on to the top E of fret 5. Then my finger goes down on the 4, so the 3rd in the chord, hammers on to the 4th, or fret 5. I'll use fret numbers rather than chord tones, this might get quite confusing. So 4th fret hammering on to the 5th, and then just resolving back to the root note, fret 5 on the D string. And he goes on with some of his other chords, A minor's in there, E minor and so forth. That's a great one just to look at these kind of chord ideas. And we really want to show you there was that sus4. So use that little thing just to embellish around that major chord. Right, next song, Wind Cries Mary, and here he's using the A shape. And it actually happens in the intro. He starts off with some bar chords. And so I did call them bar chords, they're power chords. So think of them rooted on the A string, and we have an E flat power chord. And I'm barring it, you could use 3 fingers if you wanted to. So I'm playing 6th fret on the A string, and then 8th fret on the D and the G. And we're just going to move that shape up. So it starts off on fret 6, 7, and then 8. One thing he does do to add a bit more power to the chord is bar the E string as well. So he's playing the E and the A, so it adds in this extra 5th, which gives it a bit more bottom end, gives it a bit more oomph. That's not really a bit we're worried about though, because he's not doing what I want yet. It's this next part, these little hammer-ons, where he's got his E flat, and then he's hammering on, again taking what normally the 3rd finger would play, we're barring it with 1st finger, and hammering on to that 3rd on the E string. And he just walks up the chord, or sorry, the string like that. And then he has this little riff right at the end, which is in this pattern 5 major pentatonic. So again, you can kind of visualize the chords there, but he's doing that. He's moved around. So the 3rd finger, what normally bars, the 1st finger goes on it. And I'm just moving that shape along, hammering on to the A string. So I'm barring the A string fret. 8 and hammering onto the fret 10. And just moving up, semitone at time. So fret 8 to 10 hammer on, 9 to 11 hammer on, and 10 to 12 hammer on. And then a little riff at the end, 13th fret on the E, then hammers on, 10 to 12 on the A, on the D, then go back to 10th fret on the D, and then 12th fret on the A. So we have that. So the power chord kind of intro. Then doing our 3rd in the bass chord, and then finishing with that little major pentatonic riff. So a great example of him using what we talked about earlier, using kind of that bar chord shape, normal root on the A string, but then it's moving along 2 frets and using his 1st finger to bar where his 3rd finger was, and then the 3rd finger goes on the A string. So playing the 3rd basically, it's the E note in our C chord. So it's gone up, you can see quite a distance there, 2 tones. But it's such a great way of playing it. And you get that great sound. So it's a great example of the Wind Cries Mary. That's also a really good example in that song as well. Again, how he plays the chords. Because he plays C, B flat, F. And then when he goes to the F, he does a few embellishments there. Then he goes to his C, and he plays his B flat as the 3rd in the bass shape. So he plays C there, without really moving, just does a couple of hammer-ons, and you can see then the 1st finger takes up the shape of the B flat. So that's one really nice way of doing it. So again, not too tricky, it says, but it can be a little bit tough. And again, just getting things used to that. So that works actually really nice. So again, Wind Cries Mary is a really good song to look at for these kind of Hendrix ideas. Any of these kind of slow songs are Castle Made of Sand, Little Wing, Wind Cries Mary. He uses all these techniques, so all those ones I definitely recommend to check out. Okay, what next? Castle Made of Sand we've got to look at, actually. And looking at some of these chords that we talked about. So we're going to take basically this kind of sus2 shape. I'm going to take F sus2. You could, like we had before, your normal F major bar chord, thumb over the top, hooked over to get that low bass note, and then little finger going to be on the 3rd fret of the top E. That then adds in the add 9 or sus2. Again, it's synonymous. They're both the same chord, basically. No, technically probably not, but yeah, they kind of are. You see them sometimes with a sus2, sometimes with a 9. And then all we're going to do is just take that chord, slide it up to fret 3, so it's a G, so F, G. Then we slide it again up to B flat, so now my thumb is at fret 6, then up to C at fret 8. And then it just travels back down again, fret 6, fret 3, fret 1. And it comes rest on the G. And to really make this a sus2, we do need to get rid of that third. So he plays it with a muted G. So if you really want to get that sound, mute out the G, just take that second finger, maybe touch it with underneath the third finger, or mute it out. We don't want to be hearing the A either. You can do that just again with kind of your thumb, just resting on top, muting it out. And we get that great sus2 sound. Another thing he often does is use open strings. So instead of muting the G string with the third finger, raise that finger up so you get the open. And you can hear it has that great sound. Really full sounding, the open string there. So again, that's quite a nice Hendrix kind of chord shape, using the open G as that droning note as you're changing from the F to the G to the B flat. Again, go up to the C, G's in that chord, it won't matter. Obviously with the open strings, we do have to be careful what chord we choose. If we hit a chord which doesn't have that note in it, you'll hear it, like that one for instance, it will clash. So you've got to be careful with the open strings. So there's some nice ideas there. And really, the last song to look at is probably Purple Haze. And I'll look at this one because it has the Hendrix chord, which has been kind of labelled Hendrix chord. So it comes up in a lot of his songs. Foxy Lady, great example, and obviously Purple Haze. But it does pop up in a few. It's the 7 sharp 9. And for this example, we'll do Purple Haze, which is in E, E7 sharp 9. Now it's an interesting shape. We're going to take first finger and put it on the 6th fret of the D string. We take the second finger, put it on the A string, fret 7, and then third finger will be in fret 7, but on the G string. So this first thing, we have this kind of dominant shape. If you know, kind of C7 chord, it's that kind of shape. It's just up here, slightly different finger than perhaps you might have done before. So again, first finger on the D6, second finger on the A7, and third finger on the G7. And then little finger is going to go on the B8. And then muting out the E's basically. So my little finger's just touching that top E, muting it out. And my thumb actually is touching the E string there, or you could touch it with the second finger, just muting it out. And there you go, there's just 7 sharp 9, very Hendrix sounding chord. We could even have the open E actually, that sounds quite nice. Add a bit more kind of depth to the sound, clean out the top E. So that's a really good chord to look at. The only other chords he does in this song really is the A and G. So he starts with his G and then he goes to his A. Again, thumb over the top. And he decorates them as he plays them, again with that little finger. And I think that's in 6s in this song. So it's got the E7 sharp 9, the G. You can see there, just bring that little finger on the B string to add in that add 6. Here it gets really funky here. We've got E7 sharp 9. It puts in the pattern 2 major pentatonic. It sounds really cool. So that works really well. I'm saying it's basically minor pentatonic, sorry. So yeah, so we've got 5 7 5 7 5 7, just on the E, A, and D. Again, it's such a useful shape because it's all the same fret numbers: 5 7 5 7 5 7. So it works really well. So you just use it again to embellish around. And there we go. So there's a few songs just to show you how we basically put these in, or how I have put them in. It's probably one of the better way of saying it. So just to kind of recap what we've been going over. So again, you can put a taste of Jimi Hendrix into your playing from a very kind of early stage. 6 months to a year kind of player can use it with the open chords. Just have to put the correct pentatonic scale over the correct chord. Again, it's a major chord. You're going to use a major pentatonic. It's a minor chord, minor pentatonic. As soon as you start doing the old bar chords, then we're going to think of basically the F shape with thumb hooked over the top. We can then use the little finger just to embellish around So we're using 5th fret on the E, the B and the G. We could then take our double stops, so we're holding down 2 notes at once. 5th fret on the B and the E, 2nd fret on the G with the 3rd fret on the B, strummed together. And then we can even add some hammer-ons. So hammering on from our double stop, we're doing the 3rd fret on the B and the E, hammering on to the 5th fret on the B, and then on the 2nd fret of the G, on the 3rd fret of the B, hammering on to the 4th fret on the G. That's a really great little Hendrix riff. And you can even slide those, just 2 frets higher, so taking our 3rd fret double stop up to 5, our 2nd fret up to 4th. We then talked about pentatonic shapes, so pentatonic shape 1 over top of that, so major pentatonic shape 1, I should say, sorry. And then alongside that, we've got this pentatonic shape 2, which has got this great, again, the 5/7, 5/7, 5/7, which just sounds brilliant. And it's just mixing all that together. Just to kind of get, say, that Hendrixy sort of sound. And then over the minor chord, let's take A minor for instance, and we then put the A minor pentatonic. Again, all kind of double stop ideas work over that too. So you can see the bar chords can just be fleshed out with these scale tones to make your rhythm a lot more interesting. And on the A string, the shape we're looking at here was our 5th string bar chord, but then just moving that 3rd finger up onto the A string and just sliding up 2 frets takes us to the 3rd in the chord, so our E note if we're in the key of C. And our 1st finger just takes the place of where our 3rd finger was in that bar chord shape. And again, we can then embellish that, and now we're in pattern 5 major pentatonic. Major pentatonic. And again, all those notes will work. And then I suppose the last one that was then the chordal approach. So taking your normal kind of G major, little finger on the top E, fret 5 will then give you the add 9 sus2. Putting a little finger on the B string, fret 5, will give you the add 6, and a little finger on the G string, fret 5, will give you that sus4. So again, a great way of just decorating the kind of normal bar chords. Again, that works really well. So there we go, there's a few ideas of how to use your normal bar chords, but decorate with the scales will give that then Hendrix sound. So before I wrap up, let me just check if we've got any questions, if I can remember how to do it. Which I don't think I can. Oh no, there we go. I think that's right. Which I don't think we do. Brilliant. So hopefully that will make sense then. But yes, it's not as hard as it looks, but it is a great style. Such a good way of kind of making a rhythm more interesting. As a rhythm guitarist, especially if you're in a band with a bass player, you don't necessarily need to be doing your big bulky chords. You could just outline the chords with these kind of scale tones or chordal tones mixed together. So that's a really good way of playing lead in a bit more of an interesting manner, rather than just chugging out your bar chords. It makes it so much more interesting. So yeah, have a little bit of a play around, get your bar chord, put the shape over top, and just see kind of what you end up with. Look at some of those Hendrix songs just to get a few ideas. Again, Little Wing is kind of the best, I'd say, to really start with. Not too tricky, but has everything in there that we've talked about tonight. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions, do let me know. I can be found at facebook.com/G4GuitarAshford. Come along there. I post all the information on future events and whatnot. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you on another workshop, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.